Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to your program, The Religious Dialogue at Ahlebait Television. Thank you so much for joining us in tonight's episode. Inshallah, we will be discussing an important topic, a term that's mentioned in the Holy Quran, which is the term Nushuz. We will dive deeper into this topic and understand what does nushuz mean, and we will then carry on to discuss guidance for marital reconciliation and what happens when a woman experiences emotional neglect, contempt, or avoiding her rights and responsibilities in their marriages. We will dive deeper into the topic and discuss to uncover practical and spiritual insights. Joining me for the discussion are two esteemed guests. We have with us Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Samahat Sayyid Muhammad Razavi, who is the head of the Religious Advisory Board that deals with family matters and with marital issues. As well, he is the resident scholar at the Shia Islamic Education Society in London. Salamun alaikum, Sayyid, and thank you for being with us.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for hosting the show and thank you for the sister for joining us.
Let me introduce our guest of the week. We have with us Sister Shazia Haji. She has an MA in Islamic Studies. She is also an NLP practitioner and coach, and she specializes in areas of spirituality, fostering through relationships. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Shazia. It's a pleasure to have you again on the show. We have had you twice before. For the viewers who have not heard those shows, we did two with you. We did half of My Deen, and we did toxic relationships in the past for any of the viewers who would like to catch up with those shows and the important discussions that we've had with you. But welcome again to the program, Sister Shazia.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sayyid, I would like to start with you. This term nushuz, it's mentioned in the Holy Quran. If you can explain to myself and the viewers a little bit more about this concept of nushuz, what does it mean and who does it apply to?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, this word nushuz has been misinterpreted, or I would say abused by many, especially men, and which includes Allama and scholars as well. If you look at the Quran and Hadith, nushuz means breaking the limit, breaking the restriction or limit that Islam has imposed upon the couple. And it doesn't say this limit should be only broken by lady only. Whoever breaks the limit deserves the reaction. And for example, if a wife refuses to fulfill her duties towards her husband, then the husband can take certain steps. So the similar rule applies for the men as well, which unfortunately in most of the divorce cases men usually rush to accuse the wife for nushuz, but they forget their own nushuz, their own breaking of the law or limit. According to Islamic teachings, and or if you look at the Tawzi al-Masail of Maraja Taqlid, you will find the explanation has been, alhamdulillah, now given in details, that what it means from the men's side and what it means from the ladies' side. For example, if a man does not provide maintenance, if the man does not take care of the wife the way Islam describes she should be taken care of, then the wife has the right to disobey his husband, which is normally not disclosed to the members of our community. They only uh, try to uh, show that nushuz only happens from the ladies' side only. Uh, so
Can
the
we can
nushuz of men,
can we
yeah,
Can we dive a
yeah.
little bit deeper into this? So, when we are talking about the nushuz of the wife, oftentimes we hear her fulfilling the intimacy rights and also not going out of the house without the husband's permission. Are you
Mm.
saying these are the things that are mostly used against the woman? But what is specifically the nushuz of a husband according to the Islamic Sharia? You were mentioning توضيح المسائل. What is uh, what are the behaviors that a husband would do that would be considered as nushuz?
Let me give you an example. I was dealing with a divorce case where the husband had never ever provided a single penny to the wife, and he was neglecting her in intimacy and not providing her and doing whatever he liked to do and disappearing from the family. So this is considered as no shoes of husband. And when I confronted
Mhm,
and asked him to divorce his wife, he immediately turned everything around. And my wife is Nashiza; she doesn't have relationship with me. I said, but she is claiming other way around. And
mhm,
then he couldn't argue with me because the maintenance was one of the major thing is to provide the maintenance. Let me explain another, give another explanation, uh, and this is common in the Western culture as well. When a lady marries a man, although in Islam the ladies are not required to change their surname because they are their father's daughter and they will remain their father's daughter until the end of their life. And recently, some Western women are also accepting this uh, idea. Like Tony Blair's wife is not known as Mrs. Blair in her documents. She is known with her father's surname. She didn't want to change after marriage her surname. So many educated women who became graduated, they prefer not to change their surname, and that's what Islam says. But at the same time, Islam says that when you become Mrs. So and so and you accepted his standard of life, his way of life, then you have to abide by the norms and traditions and urf and conditions of his lifestyle as long as it is not haram as your lifestyle. So that's what makes you the wife of someone in the society. So you have to abide by those rules and regulations. And the husband has a duty to maintain the standard that she had before marriage. Although if she came from a rich family and she accepted to be the wife of a husband who is not rich, that means she has given in to the way of the lifestyle of her husband. Then she cannot complain. uh, she should have put the condition and got married and said that, look, this is my lifestyle. I drive Rolls Royce and I live in palaces and I have drivers and I have servants, and you have to provide all of this to me. And then husband agreed, then he has to maintain that as standard, and if he doesn't maintain that standard, then he is committing nushuz. If there
mhm.
are no conditions and restrictions, then as long as the husband provides and feeds and gives the nafaqah according to the standard of the life of the place they are living in, that is considered as enough.
Sure. Thank you for this thorough explanation, Said, about the meaning of nushuz when it comes to the woman dealing with this issue. Sister Shazia, you are a coach, of course, and you probably receive many ladies who approach you who have issues in their marriages and who experience some of what the Sayyid has said. Are there any other areas that you would like to highlight for us in regards to this matter, the issue of nushuz? Because oftentimes we only discuss the nushuz of a female, but we've hardly seen discussions about the nushuz of a male, of a husband. Do you agree with this?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yes, I do agree. Males do. We don't have so many lectures and talks on this topic of from Surah Nisa, number 128, about when a woman fears nushuz from a man. And if there is usually, like how Sayyid explained, that they're mostly explained like, well, I'm giving you financial support and I am giving you, my right of intimacy for a woman, and so I'm okay to, then do and be the way I want. And so I like the definition, like how Syed brought it up, that it's breaking the restrictions and limits. And so we're not only people of rituals, where we're just doing the rituals of Islam or the Sharia. We also have a dimension which is the tariqah and the haqiqah, which is ikhlaq. And so that's where I get a lot of inquiries that, yes, my husband is supporting me financially, and yes, he is, providing the physical aspects of marital relationships. However, there is no emotional, he's not emotionally present. He's always at work. And then sometimes she fears that, maybe he is in a muta with another woman, which is halal. And they bring up this concept always that since it's halal, it's okay for me to do it, and I am not required to tell you. So they bring in the Sharia aspect, which I understand. However, I do get a lot of questions about, well, he's not emotionally available. I've spent so many years with my spouse. Where is that ikhlaq of, maybe if she found out, to have a communication, a dialogue? It's all about, I'm giving you your rights. Now you just have to, accept and respect me, my way or no way. And so I would invite myself and a lot of people who are in this work to expand the conversations on above Sharia levels. There is also a level of ikhlaq. Like the Holy Messenger ﷺ said, "Takhalluqu bi ikhlaq Allah," adopt the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, adopting the qualities of the Holy Messenger for us. And then if I go beyond, the Holy Messenger said that I've come here to complete your ikhlaq, to beautify your ikhlaq, makharam al-ikhlaq. So I get a lot of inquiries about the ikhlaq of the spouse and the inability to navigate between his parents and the rights of his spouse. And then there are limits. I like the definition that Syed brought forward. Then there's a lot of breaking of the limits, where he's unable to then balance. And then, of course, there's hurt, there's hate, there's resentment. And then there's a lot of emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and there's a lot of back and forth.
Mm-hmm. It's a very difficult topic to discuss and to talk about because there is so many different issues that come within this heading. Sayed, when you receive these problems and you have couples who are having issues and they have been brave enough to actually approach somebody for help, what do you suggest are the steps that they take for any issues that they are experiencing and that they are having to deal with? Sayed?
Well, first of all, it is brave of them to approach and ask for help. And when they ask for help, they should be assisted and provided help with. I wanted to give further explanation about nushuz. once somebody came to Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi and asked about this question: what are the signs of nushuz? So he started to explain. For example, when you get married, you are in honeymoon period, and
Mm.
you express love to each other. You are very kind to each other, and if that behavior changes from each side, that is considered as minor nushuz. That can be also considered, because what is the reason why you are not smiling the way you used to smile at the beginning, or what is the reason you are shouting at me and you didn't used to shout in the honeymoon period. What These are all minor signs of nushuz, although it may not lead to the punishment, it may not lead to the reaction that Islamic jurisprudence prescribes for this kind of nushuz. For example, if the husband is nashes, then the wife is allowed to refuse intimacy with him, and he has no reason to say that she is becoming nauseous because he is not fulfilling the duty. Therefore, Islam gives her permission not to be intimately available for the husband. But nobody would take that seriously. And there are also, especially in the Western society, and when I deal with inheritance, issues of inheritance and divorce, immediately men start to claim half of the property and half of the bank account and half of this and half of that. I usually tell them, hang on, uh, didn't your wife provide anything towards the property? They say, yes, of course she provided. So I said, according to Islamic law, you cannot claim any single penny from the earning and the contribution that she provided towards the family, because it was not wajib on her. So if a divorce takes place or inheritance takes place, the wife is allowed to put a hand on the property and say, hang on, half of this property's value was raised by me, and I was the person who was paying the mortgage or half of the mortgage. Therefore, the half that belongs to me cannot be divided in inheritance, and the half that belongs to me, the husband cannot claim it in case of divorce. He can only claim, according to the law of the land, only half of whatever he contributed to his wife and ask it back. Or if she is generous enough, she can give the entire amount that he has contributed towards the family. But even in that case, we have to also look, if the nafaqah was not provided by the husband, then he remains in debt until the wife forgives him. So if the
Right.
divorce takes place, the wife either has to forgive the outstanding amount of unpaid nafaqah in the past and present. Otherwise, it doesn't. The divorce can not go through, and he will be considered as nashes.
Right. Okay. So, Sister Shazia, of course, these issues that the Sayyid has brought up affect women greatly. This undue pressure, that's financial pressure that's put upon a woman that God has not put upon the woman, and society and these husbands place upon the woman, where she is expected to participate in the financial commitments of a family, and yet all the other commitments of a family also fall upon her. Surely this affects a woman's well-being, both spiritually and emotionally. How do you see, what are the issues that you see in terms of this affecting women, and how can women deal with these challenges? How can wives navigate these challenges?
It's a very good question, a very comprehensive question. Requires a little bit of a detailed analysis, but I'll quickly just go through a few points. Number one is because she is not asked by Sharia, by our faith, to provide financially at least. If when I've noticed with women, if we know ourselves, like Imam Ali says, the best knowledge is to get to know yourself. And that is a journey of a lifetime, but the one who attains knowledge of his own self has obtained the greatest victory indeed. And so, because we usually are, study in the West or even study in the East, but our education system is so westernized that we are so career oriented that we find our identity and worth in how much we're able to make money, how much money, even though if we get married. And so when a woman faces that, for me, it's always, if she comes to me and says that, there's a lot of expectations from my in-laws or my spouse's side, I would turn back and ask her, well, what are your expectations of yourself? What are your expectations of life in large? What is your purpose? What are your expectations concerning you, your spouse, and marriage? What do you foresee? What's your vision for yourself, your marriage, and your children? That gives a gateway for a woman to navigate what is she foreseeing in life. And she will, and a woman, Allah has blessed us with a lot of emotional brilliance. It's not like the men don't have it, but while women are feminine anatomy of the physical self is that we are very emotionally attuned. It kind of gets sometimes, clouded due to, the days of the month, we go through pregnancy. And however, we're very good to be able to go back and attune to ourselves. And if we're finding ourselves to be at stretch, I would advise myself and women to ask, what's my purpose? What am I created for? The more I'm able to find my self-worth, where am I finding my self-worth? Because this conversation is a dead end that you are not required to bring in financial support in the family if she truly believes that she is, even though you can give her the entire Tozi Masai. But if her mindset is of such that, no, I find my identity in how much I earn, and I find my identity in that arena, the financial arena, it's a dead end. That conversation just completely dissolves. So step number one, calling her out and asking her, what's your purpose? What's your vision for yourself, for your family, in your marital life? If there is even nashes, if there is limits being broken, and if you're feeling at a stretch, that leads to a conversation of, well, if I don't bring in that kind of money, or if I don't work, I will not be able to enjoy the luxuries of life. Deep down inside, my husband can't afford it. So then comes back again to the conversation of like, again, if you're not able to get what you want, what's the trade-off? Is your, your emotional health, well-being, your children's well-being, and the relationships well-being more important, or is it, for you to enjoy certain luxuries? And then step number 2 is inviting them to own their decision, to be able to live an honest life. It might not be upholding Quranic values, but at least not living a hypocritical life. Because what happens is that the worst, what takes away from ourselves as women is when we go into the game of blaming, criticizing, controlling, and correcting, and complaining. Even though I'm not saying that there's not wrong being done on that side, but we're not able to own our own decisions. We don't know ourselves, and we're not, as women, able to own it. That, yes, I am overstretched. It is not about the others. It is about me. I want it. And so that's a journey to help that sister to be able to own their finances. The other question is sometimes she finds out that there's an extramarital affair. There is Nushuz on the other side, and she goes into victim mindset. That too requires a point of going back and knowing who you are, where is your self-worth, and owning your relationship. The first question, is I ask her, do you want to be in this marriage? What's your will for this marriage? If there's no will, then innamal a'malu binniyat. So if there's no will, what are you going to base? How are you going to build on that? So inviting the woman to find her will. That if that spouse has, disrespectfully or, has gone into a relationship which is now affecting our own relationship, the marriage relationship, if you're able to own it, you will fight for it. You will
mm,
you will learn the skills, you will learn, you will own your life, and you will. So in a nutshell, it's a very comprehensive, very vast question, and it requires a lot of answer in depth. But I would invite the women to first go and find themselves, know who you are. Where are you finding your self worth? Are you codependently doing relationships, or are you interdependently? What is your self worth? Where do you find your self worth? Is it through God? In God, through Tawheed, or is it I'm finding my self worth in my marriage? If my husband, decides to betray or whatever it is, I have an identity crisis. And so,
mm.
step number one, learning to know who you are, where's your self worth, and then owning that decision. Why should I leave this marriage? I have 20 years of marriage with, for instance, 3 children. If my spouse has now decided to take this step, I still want this marriage, then own it. And if she's able to own it, then it's miracles. Then it's nur ala nur. A woman has that strength. God has given her a lot of emotional strength. So I would say to be able to find her strength, that God given strength in her. Of course, to pair up with coaches, counselors, people who do this work, Sayyid himself, finding that strength to find her
Mm.
will is truly step number one. Then there are many other steps, learning the skills, communication styles, and many others. But knowing who you truly are and where do you find your self worth.
This shows your answer shows the importance of reaching out to a professional and allowing them to guide you step by step in order to have to look more deeply at your inner self and inner thoughts. Sayyid, following on from what Sister Shazia then said, the ayah in Surah An-Nisa encourages sulh. The problem is that, when you have these kind of pressures in a marriage, and yes, some may not wish to break the marriage because they've spent 20 years in the marriage or 30 years and they have children. But if it's a newlywed couple, for example, and there are these kind of financial pressures that are put on the lady, or the lady is just not provided for, as you had mentioned earlier, which constitutes to a nushuz of the husband, of course, this pushes people into haram. So, how do you then deal with this, and how do you approach the sulh issue that is mentioned in the ayah in Surah An-Nisa? That when there is a dispute, there is contempt, there is evasion, then it's better to reach terms of settlement. How would ulama approach this, and what is the importance of sulh in this situation? And when is it practically okay to be going for the sulh option?
Well, and there is a common phrase in Arabic: "Ashiruhunna bima'ruf wa fariquhunna bima'ruf." That live with them. This is an address to the men. Live with the ladies decently, with respecting their rights. And if for some reason you can't live with them, leave them decently as well, without punishing them, without making life difficult for yourself and them, and creating unnecessary uh, problem in the society. So that's what Islam advises very simply. Although it is said very simply, but it's not easy. In majority of the case, I've rarely found a divorce case where there is no dispute. I mean, they usually end up, even in the cases where there are no children involved, usually couple end up arguing about different issues that they have faced. Uh, for example, financial issues then become an issue. Like I have provided, that the lady would say, I have provided what I should not, or it was not obligatory upon me to provide, and he has taken
Mm,
advantage of my help and assistance and everything. And now that the divorce is taking place, he wants to take all or half of my contribution towards a family, which was not an obligation from upon me according to Sharia and Islamic law. I mean, usually when I convert non-Muslim ladies for the marriage and explain their rights and explain to them according to Islamic teachings, if the lady is a millionaire, her million is her own million, and she can demand maintenance from her husband according to her standard of life. They extremely like it, because in the Western culture, when even if you are married, usually they argue, and unfortunately, there are some Muslim cases who also say that, oh, we are living in this society and this is what it is understood. If and the answer to that is, if you wanted that kind of lifestyle with your husband or wife, then you should have brought it into the marriage contract, that I am marrying you and I expect you to earn the living and provide half of everything that will be needed for the life our lifestyle, and that has to be clearly mentioned in the contract. And if she agreed to follow that, then she has no right to complain. But if she didn't agree, then Islam takes over. Same thing happens in inheritance. For example, there are cases where, because according to Islam, if you if you have two daughters and one son, the inheritance would be divided into four portions, and two portions will be given to the son, and each daughter will get one portion. So this is how the inheritance is divided. If the father wants to give more to his daughter, he should give it as a gift before his death. But if they die, then Islamic jurisprudence takes over. Same thing applies in the marriage contract. If the lady is given and get into the marriage without, and this is what usually happens, I have seen the marriage contracts designed in Pakistan, which gives a lot of rights to women, but the Maulana and the family of the bride and groom, they immediately just they cut the rights off, and they don't give any right that is written in the marriage contract according to Sharia, and they don't give it. So, and there are cases where I dealt with it, that the lady was educated and she knew what her rights are. As sister was explaining, she knew where she stands in the society and what is her position and what are her rights. She said, no, I will not marry my husband unless he agrees with all the Pakistani marriage contract conditions, which equally gives the right of divorce to the lady. And then there is another question which asks, are there any restrictions on this right? And they cross no, then she has absolutely equal right to divorce herself. But unfortunately, the rules and regulations are not introduced, and in majority of the cases, the family of the bride uh, don't insist on these rights. So she is abused from her in-laws side, and she is abused by her own parents side as well, and she is not given the choice to pick and choose the rules and regulations and conditions she wants in her marriage contract. So what we need to do is, especially ulama and masajid have the responsibility and duty to educate men and women. And I have mentioned this many times, we need to have classes before marriage in which we should explain the rights of men and women before and after marriage, so they don't end up in argument and disagreements. And one of the reasons of the divorce is that they quickly get married to each other without understanding each other, or without even understanding who they are and what their rights are, and then they find themselves in a different situation, and then the conflict and disagreement and arguments start.
Thank you, Sayed, for this great advice that you have given based on the experiences that you go through and cases that you deal with every single day. Sister Shazia, we are down now to the last 10-15 minutes of our program. I would like to ask you this final question that, based on what the Sayed said, How can husbands be reminded of their responsibility and accountability, especially that we are accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that we do? And how can they be reminded not to neglect and avoid their duties?
Is
Yes.
We've
yeah.
got you back now. We
Thank.
lost you shortly.
Yes. Yes. So, the question, this question would stem from that both are trying to fulfill their rights and both are respectful. However, like how Syed had mentioned, that like Imam Khomeini said, that's a very beautiful example that Syed gave, that how they were the honeymoon period and then it kind of gets frizzled out, the expression of kindness. And that's also going into the realm of nushuz. And sometimes there's emotional abuse. I won't say the word abuse even, but there's this concept about the 4 seasons in marriage by a writer called Gary Chapman. And just like how there are 4 seasons in our ecological system to have balance in the system, a relationship also goes through these seasons in marriage, which is the springtime, like Sayed was explaining, the honeymoon, and then the summer where they're able to bear the fruits of their relationship, and then somehow we go into the fall and the winter. Now, if the couple themselves are self-aware, know their rights, like how Sayed was explaining, it's very natural and normal to go through the fall and this winter seasons of your relationships, and very natural, where things are not as passionate as they were before, and there was no creativity, but it's the fall season and you'll be able to weather through it very beautifully. So going back to your question is that, how do I weather through the fall and the winter seasons of a relationship, of my marriage, when there's not an extreme case of Nushuz? Of course, that requires a conversation of how mediation takes place, like how you had asked Sayyid. What is sulh take place? How does mediation happen? Where do you have a third person, a counselor or a coach come and help mediate? When does that extent come up? When do couples reach out to marriage counselors for mediation? Or a woman is enough if there is not that extent. So your question goes on to the second part of what I just mentioned, is that it's not to that extent. It's not like he's not giving me the rights. It's just that we're in this fall season, which I'm fearing that will go into the winter, where there's now rigidity and I don't want to see him and he doesn't want to see it. So we're in this, sorry to explain and give you the scene, because the answer is related to just giving you that
No,
scenery
please
of,
go ahead. We're
this.
enjoying listening to you, Sister Shazia. Please go ahead. Be thorough.
Thank you. So in this fall season, couples usually are unable to say it, but they're saying that, we're fearing that we're going to go into this winter where there'll be rigidity. In the fall, it's usually, I do see him eye to eye, but that expression of kindness, mawadda and rahma, is kind of like compromise. So the question was that, how do I invite him to his accountability? There's a course that I share with the sisters. It's called SPACE, SPACE. It's based on 6 verses of the Quran. And of course, I do take help from different, scholars, different researchers in marriage, like the one that I mentioned earlier, and then many other scholars. I integrate their work also. So how would a woman invite her spouse to his higher version? I would invite the woman to first go and invite herself. In Allah yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah does not change the situation of a person or a nation, and nations are made out of people and groups, and till they do not take responsibility of their own selves. So that's one verse. There's 6 of them. And if the woman is able to truly learn and understand and incorporate these 6 verses in her life, she truly becomes not only a change for herself and for her own journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in perfection and in Tawheed, but she truly is able to model that. And I'm a living example of that. And I've kind of like, tried it. And the ladies who, Allah, ladies who cross my path also, I share that with them. Primarily 13, 11, Allah, so taking responsibility, knowing I can't change anybody other than myself. So becoming a model of excellence in myself. Am I usually emotional verbal abuse is a two-way street. It's a different topic to talk about verbal abuse, but usually a partner or in a marriage, there's someone can verbally abuse, but how can you verbally abuse constantly to a wall? There comes a point where you stop. So there is, maybe it's passive abuse on the other side. So if I want respect, usually it's like, if I want respect, he needs to gain my respect. Then only I will give respect. That's not an Islamic concept of Tawheed. Tawheed is 17:7. In asantum, asantum lianfasum. When you do good, you're only benefiting your soul. And when you choose a path which is non-haq, you're only affecting yourself. So inviting him to respect is like, am I respectful? Do I know what respect is? Especially India, Pakistan, it's all respect means obedience. Nowhere in the Quran, and Sayyid can correct me if I'm wrong, that Allah says you need to obey your spouse, fulfill the responsibilities of each other. Obedience is to Allah, to the Holy Messenger, and ulul amr minkum, which we are the Ahlebait, in relation to Tawheed. So, am I respectful? That's 17:7. If I know that I'm not respectful, then I'll call out an account for myself and ask for an apology. That is the beautiful way of Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. I apologize. I was, impolite, and that's where you are modeling respect, and that's where you are, you're showing that I'm taking accountability. So it's usually about, well, if he takes accountability, then I will take accountability. If he shows me respect, then I will. So we have literally given our buttons to our spouses, and in saying that when you guide me, of course it's the lead. However, sometimes men are not able to be the model of excellence and lead us towards our perfection. But what stops us? Because in the Quran, nowhere Allah says that spiritual perfection is gender bias. He always talks about the male and the female. Mu'minin wal mu'minat. So that's two. Number three, the most important part is of a woman is that she, by feminine nature, is of a receiver. Usually in marriage, when women stop to receive, men give in their own love languages the way they show love. Sometimes we are unable to receive the language of love that they're showing because we think that this is the way love should be and this is the way it should be shown. So if women are able to flex in that sense of being able to receive, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a very beautiful ayat, part of the 6 magical verses. وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. When you are attentive to Allah, how He is spreading His light of love and mercy in your life through your spouse and others, when you become a recipient, Allah increases the capacity within you to be able to truly see that the increase of capacity comes in when we're able to receive as a woman. And He might show it in different ways. Maybe He's helping with the kids, maybe not the way you want it. Maybe He did speak up to his parents and say, today I'd like to take my spouse out, or today I'd like to do this. But it was not noticed because it was not the way she wanted it. So I would invite her to receive, and Allah truly then helps realign, helps us refocus the mind shift, the paradigm shift He does for us in our souls, which He says, La azidannakum. And then, my time is up, but then there are 3 more laws of principles of relationship, which is in the Quran, which I truly keep myself close to. Vulnerability, and God calls us out for that, and taking responsibility of your self-worth, which is 5105, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum. You're responsible for yourself. La yadharrukum. He can't the other cannot misguide you or hurt you or harm you if you're in guidance. And that's God's challenge. And this verse is like the entire challenge. It started in my journey. And the course is based on that no one can remove you from your spiritual status. So in a conclusion, in the end, the degree I am able to know who I am, what's my purpose, What's my self-worth? What's my goal? What's my vision for myself in my relationship? Is marriage end all and be all for me in life? Or is it a means towards tawheed, towards taqwa, towards godliness, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That sets the tone for a woman to then maybe weather through these the winter and the fall seasons of a relationship that it goes through. If mawadda and rahma are compromised, a woman truly does, I believe so, has the ability that she can truly navigate. And then a different conversation of when does a woman reach out for mediation? When she's tried all the above, and the mediation is required, then that mediation and reconciliation is also, like how Sayyid explained, through ma'roof, kindness, caring, knowing that my soul is very important and I don't want to hold any hate, resentment, and grudges. There's a very beautiful, and I'll end here. There's a very beautiful dua in the Quran in Surah Hashr where Allah says, "Rabbana la taj'al fi qulubina ghillan lilladhina amanu." Allah, save me from any rancor, resentment, for people who believe, and this is my spouse, who Allah has blessed me so much through him in many ways. If I'm going to hold hate, resentment, there's a little bit of accountability first I need to take for myself. And then Allah only expands the horizons for me to become a role model to invite him to his higher version. Through affirmations, there's a verse, beautiful. I mean, I have the whole course is based on these verses and all of that. But it's affirmations. I mean, if I keep on saying I have evidence that I know that, I've seen kindness in you and I know you're kind, well, a person is in trueness will follow up. So, yes, thank you
I
so
wish
much
we had more time in the
share.
program to discuss all these points, but how can our viewers reach out to you should they wish to go through and learn this course? How can they reach out to you, Sister Shazia?
There's an Instagram page, and we're in the course of also designing a program, a pre-recorded course, where they can go on the website and also reach out and do this course. However, I do have an Instagram page, and they can reach out to me in that.
Just with your name, or is there a specific name that they need to search for?
It's Shazia_Haji.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sister Shazia. Sayyid, of course, the points that Sister Shazia so beautifully raised are for couples who are communicating, who do want to make a marriage work. And they can reach settlement and do sulh and, and work things out. However, that's not the case for all the couples. That's not the case for all the cases. What is your final advice before we wind up the program? Because in order, once there is nushuz happening, and it's a serious case of nushuz, for a woman to have khula, divorce, and to go through that is very difficult. And to even prove her case is extremely difficult, even to ulama, because she's just simply not believed, and she's asked for proofs, and a lot of times you cannot prove many things. So what is your advice there before we finish the program? And you only have 2 minutes, Sayyid.
Yeah, I would like to mention an incident that took place in front of Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah alayhi. One of the scholars was saying that he took a couple for marriage in presence of Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah alayhi, and he did the marriage, and the couple were extremely grateful that Imam Khomeini did the marriage. So both of them asked Imam Khomeini to give an advice for happy and successful marriage. He said, tolerate each other and sacrifice for each other. Then they said, okay, give another advice. He again repeated each other and sacrifice for each other. Then they said, please give something else, and he repeated same thing again. And when it was asked for explanation, he said, well, if the marriage is established on this principle that I will give benefit of doubt to my wife or husband, I will not jump to conclusion, I will tolerate. Of course, I mean, both of them from different environment, different. Even if you marry a cousin, they are brought up in different houses, and there are bound to be differences and disagreements. So you cannot expect 100% agreement between couple. I mean, only today somebody asked me to do istikhara for marriage, and can I trust the person for marriage? It didn't come good. Should I marry the person? It came good. Of course, she didn't tell me. I said, this is very confusing. I said, look, marriage does not work with istikharas. Marriage works with understanding each other, having the intention to give him his space and he should understand to give you your space and not jump to conclusion. So even if the istikhara has come good, you have to make it work. Without making marriage work, marriage will not be successful. And I have heard many times, Maulana, istikhara was extremely good, and I'm going through hell and difficulties and problems. And so I again repeat the same thing, that marriages do not work, or istikharas don't guarantee the happy and successful marriage. You have to make the choice. You have to choose the lifestyle. You have to decide how you are going to live with your husband or wife, and how you are going to treat her or him, and how you are going to sort out the problem. If you're not willing to give in, if you're not willing to compromise, if you're not willing to sacrifice, then it will not work.
Thank you very much. Sadly, we are completely out of time. I thank both my honorable guests, Sayyid Muhammad Razavi and Sister Shazia Haji, for enlightening us with all these brilliant points that you both have raised, and so much food for thought. The greater thanks is to you, dear viewers, for staying with us to the end of the program and for your attentive listening. Join us again next week for another episode of the Religious Dialogue. Until then, I leave you all under the care and protection of Almighty Allah.